Okay, today in lesson 11, we're actually going to subtract fractions instead of adding them. But we're also going to stick with the same type of strategies we've been working with. So it's really not much new. Let's start with the first one here. We have 7/8 minus 1/3. Now, as you're trying to subtract these, the first thing you have to do is generate equivalent fractions. Now, there's three questions you got to pose to yourself every time you start to subtract or add fractions. And the first one I always like to say is turn one into the other. So what I mean by that is you look at your two denominators and look at the smaller one and see if that can be multiplied to get the other one. So if I skip counted by 3, it'll be 3, 6, 9. So that does not work. If it did work, that would be your least common multiple. Okay? Since that didn't work, we have to go to our second one, and that's try to find a least common multiple. And the best way to do that is to set you up a little chart, and we'll go 3 and 8. Then I can skip count by these two numbers and see if we have a common multiple. And I like starting with my larger one. I go out about 3, 8, 16, 24. Now I'm going to skip count by 3. It's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Okay, in this case, 24 is the least common denominator. And that's the same thing we would get in this one if we multiplied 8 times 3. So now, since we know that doing the crisscross method would actually be the same as doing our least common multiple, we can go ahead and set up our problem. We know we get our common denominator here by going 8 times 3. Now up top, I'm going to, and where we do the smiley face, take 7 times 3. I'm going to put my operator in there, which is subtracting. You notice I started on the left top side. You have to start on the left top side. You're just subtracting 7/8 from 1/3, not 1/3 from 7/8. Now the second one's going to be 1 times 8. Now we have our self set up, so we can simplify it. I'm going to simplify it down here. We know 7 times 3 is 21, minus 8 times 1 is 8 over 24. Now when we subtract this, we got 21 minus 8. That's going to give us 13/24. Now I didn't tell us to reduce, so I'm just going to leave it at this point. So 13/24 would be our correct answer. Okay, our next one. Let's start with the rules again. Here's number 1. Turn one into the other. So when I look at these two denominators, I can see 5 can be turned into 10. So the way I would do that, I know that if I take 3/5 and I multiply that by 2 over 2, that's going to give me 10. So now I got 7/10 minus, we got 3 times 2 is 6, 5 times 2 is 10. So now I got 7/10 minus 6/10, and that gives us 1/10. Our next one, we have a mixed number. And we're going to try to subtract our fractions first. Okay, because this is actually, if we broke it down, it's 1 minus 5/6, excuse me, 1 plus 5/6 minus 2/3. So I'm going to try subtracting these first. Okay. Now going back to our one where it says our number 1, turn one into the other. We can turn around and see we can take 3 into 6. So I know I got 5/6 minus, and here I got 2/3, and I have to multiply that by 2 over 2 to get 6. So now I have 1 plus 5/6 minus 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 2 is 6, and we got 1 plus 5 minus 4 is 1, 6, which gives us 1 and 1/6. Oh, 1/6. There we go. Under F, we now have 5 plus 6/7 minus 3 plus 2/3. Okay. Now when it comes to mixed numbers like this, I actually like to stack them. 5 6/7, and I'm subtracting 3 and 2/3. And it doesn't matter which way, I just can visually see it better this way. Just like if we were doing decimals, I would start with a larger number, with the fractions first, or the decimals. So now the first one, I'm going to start abbreviating turn 1 into other. Okay. Now, can I turn 3 into 7? No. So this strategy is out. 2, least common multiple. We skip counted 3, 6, 9. We can already tell with 7, 14, 21 that 21 is going to be our common denominator. So let's go ahead and subtract 6/7 minus 2/3 first. And when we rewrite it, we got 7 times 3 over 6 times 3, put in our operator, over 2 times 7, which that gives us 18 minus 14 over 21. When we subtract these two, we'll end up with 4/21. So this ends up with 4/21. Now I still got to subtract my whole numbers. 5 minus 3 is 2. So there's 2 and 4/21. Now I can reduce this one, but I'm not going to because it's not asking me to. All right, so let's do this one to stack them. Now we're going to go ahead and try to subtract 7/8 and 3/4. Now in this one, can I turn one into the other? Well, 4 can be turned into 8. So I'm going to go 7/8 minus 3/4. In order to get that into 8s, I got to multiply it by 2 over 2. Now that gives me 7/8 minus 3/4. 3 times 2 would have been 6. And 4 times 2 is 8. So there's our 6/8. Let me clean that up just a little bit. 6/8. Which gives us 1/8. So now we have 1/8. And 15 minus 5 gives us 10. So 10 and 1/8. On H, let's go ahead and stack them. 15 5/8, 3 1/3. And I'm going to subtract my fractions first. What am I doing? We are subtracting our fractions first. 5/8 minus 1/3. Now 3, 6, 9, so I know I can't change it into it. And 8, 16, 3 is not a multiple of 16. I get 8, 16, 24. I know 3 is not a multiple of 8, 3 is not a multiple of 16, but 3 is a multiple of 24, which is the same we get if we do our smiley face method. So let's go ahead and do our smiley face method, which is 8 times 3 with 5 times 3. Put in our operator, 1 times 8. Now when we simplify it, we got 5 times 3 is 15, minus 1 times 8 is 8, over 24, which gives us 7/24. So let's go ahead and put our fraction down here. 7/24. 15 minus 3 is 12. So 12 and 7/24. Sandy ate 1/6 of a candy bar. John ate 3/4 of it. How much more of the candy bar did John eat than Sandy? So basically, we're saying here on a tape diagram, the total here is 3/4. And that is what John ate. And it says Sandy ate 1/6 of a candy bar. And they're wanting to know how much more did John eat. So that's telling us we're going to subtract 3/4 minus 1/6, and that should give us what John ate. So now, using our rules, number one, can I turn one into the other? 4, 8. Nope, can't do that one. Now, when we do our least common multiple, I like starting with a larger one. And I can see if it's a multiple as I go. 6, 12. Oh, wait a minute. 4, 8, 12. I know 12 is a multiple, so that is our least common multiple. So, what I can do is I'm going to turn 3/4 into 12. So I'm going to go 3/4 times 3/3, because 3 times 4 is 12. And I'm going to subtract 1/6 times, I'm going to have to multiply 6 by 2. So now I've got 9/12 minus 2/12, which equals 7/12. So John ate 7/12 more. Bill reads 1/5 of a book on Monday. He reads 2/3 of the book on Tuesday. If he finishes reading a book on Wednesday, what fraction book did he read on Wednesday? So let's go ahead and put it in a tape diagram so we can visualize it. And we know the whole book is one book. And they read 1/5, and this was read on Monday. And it says 2/3 was Tuesday. And they finished the book on Wednesday. And they want to know how much was read on Wednesday. So if you look at here, I know I can take the whole book minus 1/5 plus 2/3. Because if I add these two together and subtract it from the whole, it's going to give me what we met on Wednesday, what they read on Wednesday. So, first thing I'm going to do is add 1/5 plus 2/3. Now I can't turn 3 into 5, so our first option is out. The second option is finding the least common denominator, and I know if I go 5, 10, 15, 10 is not a multiple of 3, but 15 is. And that's the same as our smiley face method. So let's go ahead and do the smiley face. This is 5 times 3 over 1 times 3. Put our operator in, plus 2 times 5, which gives us 3 plus 10 over, that's a 10, over 15, which equals 13 15ths. So, now we can plug this in, 1 minus 13 15ths, and we know this is going to be 2 15ths. So we read 2/5, 2 15ths of the book was read on Wednesday. Tank A has a capacity of 9.5 gallons. 6 1/3 gallons of the tank's water were poured out. How much of the water are left in the tank? So, here is our tape diagram. The total in it was 9.5 gallons. And it says 6 1/3 was poured out. And wants to know how much was left. So now I got this situation where I have 9.5 and I'm subtracting 6 1/3. Well, that's interesting. I've got a decimal and a fraction. Well, how about if I convert this decimal into a fraction? And the way I do that, if you remember, is I have 9 wholes and I have 5 in the tenths place. So it'll be 5 in the tenths place. and we're subtracting 6 and 1/3. Get rid of that little mark there. 6 and 1/3. So now let's go ahead, come on over here, let's subtract our fractions first. 5/10 minus 1/3. Now I know I can't take 3 and turn it into 10, but now if I skip count by threes, if I landed on a 5, excuse me, if I land on something with a 0, I know that I can turn that into it. But 3, if I go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, so 30, which is when we do our spirally face method, is going to be the closest multiple. So we're going to go 10 times 3, 5 times 3, put in our operator, and 1 times 10. So now we have 15 minus 10 over 30, which equals 5/30. So we know now that this is 5/30, and 9 minus 6 is 3. So this is 3 and 5/30. Now once again, it did not tell me to reduce, so I'm not going to reduce it. So I know 3 and 5/30 is what was left.